All right. All right. Greetings, everyone. My name is Minister Ra, and this is going to be episode number 2 of Conscious Vibes. I thank each and every one of you for tuning in. In today's session, we're going to be speaking with Miss Veronica Paris. Veronica, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Raj.
Awesome. So, for those of you who may not know, Veronica is an intuitive guide, an inner child healer, and a medium. So, today's conversation should be very interesting as we dive deep into her life story so she can share more about her work, and her journey so that, she can inspire you guys. Those of you who may be on the fence, those of you who may be looking to step into your spiritual journey as to whatever modality you would like to be practicing. She's going to be talking about what her experience has been to inspire you guys on that mark. So, without further ado, do you mind telling us a little bit about you, Veronica?
Yes, of course, Raj. Thank you for having me. So, I am an intuitive trauma healer, and this is something that I've been doing for over 20 years. And it started with me personally. I am a survivor of complex trauma in my childhood. And as I began my healing journey, I was realizing that life kept not working out for me. And I finally did the about face and started to really go inward to that soul journey to explore what was going on. Why did I keep choosing the same men in my life? Why did life seem to not work out for me repeatedly? And so I started that inward journey. And when I started that inward journey, I began to intuitively connect to the aspects of myself that had experienced these traumas. I could see them and I could hear them and I could dialogue with them. And at the time, over 20 years ago, when I started doing that work, I thought it was something that everybody did. I thought that everybody could talk to their little 4-year-old that had trauma. Um, so that's how the journey began for me. I started in my own inward practices of meditation, therapy, group healing sessions, and I took that inward. And in that inward process was when this very unique process that I call the energy helix was born. And it is what I bring to the clients that I work with today.
Wow, wow. That is truly profound. Yeah, I agree with you. You'd think that a lot of people, when you get into this space, you'd assume maybe that a lot of people are already kind of in tune with what's going on from their childhood years, and kind of like connecting with that side of themselves. But the honest truth is that isn't the case. That really isn't the case. And so for you, I guess, at what point or what stage of your life did you begin interacting with you know, the childhood memories or the childhood phase that you were describing? At what stage would you have said that you started that whole journey?
Yeah. So I had been doing it all along, but I just didn't realize what I was doing. It was
Mm.
only when I started to go to group settings like Al Anon and these support groups for children of alcoholics. Both my parents were alcoholics. And I started to share my experience of what I was doing in the privacy of my own home when I was doing my inner healing work, that I started to realize that it was a very unique thing that was happening. So it was from the very beginning, but I didn't consciously understand what I was really doing. The more I talked about it, the more I realized I was actually connecting to aspects of myself that had experienced the traumas of the past and my childhood. And from this now, Veronica, from this now perspective, or that now perspective, when I began my healing journey. So it was something that all along, it was that small little voice, a small little whisper that had been there. It just took me getting more quiet within myself and my life to begin to hear it. So the more I was able to get quiet and still through meditation and quiet reflection in nature, the more I began to receive. So it's been all along, but as the years have gone on, it's gotten a little bit more clear and definitive.
That makes sense. And would you say that based on the clientele that you've worked with, would you say a lot of the challenges that they're facing in their own personal journey stem from things that may have occurred during childhood?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say 9 times out of 10, it is the childhood. And then there's the experiences where we experience an event that was difficult for us as young adults. Maybe it could be a divorce, it could be something that happened in high school, college, any area of an individual's life that created pain and sadness that was not seen, heard, and loved at the time that it happened. I believe it creates a fragment in our energy field. I believe we are all energy. Our essence, our soul is made of energy. So, yes, mostly childhood, but any time in our life that was not seen, heard, and loved at the moment it happened, I believe it creates a fragment, what I call a fragment in our essence, in our soul. And these are the aspects of us that sit waiting for cohesiveness, for love, to be seen, to be recognized. And we have the responsibility of offering that to ourselves now in our healing journey.
Wow. And as you were talking, I was thinking. So I know maybe a lot of people are more familiar with shadow work per se. We hear a lot about doing your shadow work, and yeah, I'd say maybe not a lot of people would be as familiar with hearing about doing inner child work. Now, if you could maybe, and I know you kind of already did, but to define it in just a short conceptual manner, how would you describe inner child healing work as a process for those who may not really be aware about the topic so much, like a 101, to help folks get more familiarized with this concept?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share my screen with you here, Raj, to share with everyone what this is in a much more simplified process. I believe that we are all energy. So when we have these life events that happen to us that cause the pain, the sadness, whether it be the childhood or any time in our lives, this is something we could have happened last week. If it's not seen, heard, and loved at the time that it happens, I believe it creates these fragments in our essence. So it's as simple as understanding that we are energy. Our essence, our soul is made of energy. And anytime that energy is impacted in a way that moves us in a negative context, what we're talking about here in the healing of trauma, so it creates some type of sadness for us. It's not cohesive. It creates a split. And each one of these splits is that time, that moment that it happened. So if you had 12 moments in your life, if you look back in your life that were significantly impactful to your childhood or your young adulthood, then there would be 12 aspects of yourself. This is very similar to shadow work. This is very similar to parts work, where there's an aspect of you that has been wounded, created a shadow, density, and I call it the fragment, and it is holding the time space reality of that moment. So if wounding happened to you at 4 years old that was not seen, acknowledged, and loved, there is an aspect of you in your energy field that is holding the persona of that 4-year-old right now, today.
Wow, thank you so much for that explanation. That's very deep, actually. That's like really deep. In having to think that if you're someone who is like in your elderly age and you've been struggling with certain different traits, habits, or emotional baggages that those particular habits or feelings could have been stemming from all the way back to childhood years. That's crazy to think. So how would you describe, because I know with being familiar with, say, let's say, with doing shadow work, all these different things, like these things take time. Now, do you find that in someone pursuing inner child healing that it's something that is an easy one, two, three, or this is something that really, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort? How would you describe that process for someone who would be looking to get into doing inner child healing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Raj. A lot of people will say to me, well, how quick is this going to be? Well, I want this to be fast. Can we do it in one session? And like I just want to in and out, and I just want, real quick fix. And I say to them, imagine that little girl or that little boy that experienced that pain was right next to you, and you're offering them this approach, right? So it kind of changes the context of it, because what I believe is we all deserve to have intentional presence. And while for some people it may be a shorter process, for others it may be a lifelong process. It really all depends to each person. Everybody is unique and individuals. So um, I have found that the more the person is holding intentional presence, in other words, they want to be there, they want to hear them, they want to talk to them, they want to be that one person in their life that they've never had, the quicker the process goes. A lot of people, when I begin this work with people, a lot of people will pause because they're afraid. They feel afraid to connect to these aspects of themselves. They're afraid to go back to these places of trauma, and they don't want to re-experience the pain. And I always say to them, when you reconnect to these aspects of yourself, it's not to re-traumatize yourself or to go back to the trauma. It's to reconnect with the aspect of yourself that got left behind due to the trauma. So the relationship is very different. It's not so much about going in and dissecting what happened. It's more about going in, meaning into your own heart, and finding out who's waiting there and bringing them back home, letting them know that now, today, you are the one that is present for them. So the timing is different for everybody, but I do find the fundamental importance of having intentional presence. It's key.
Wow, yeah, that is profound. And I, again, as I'm listening, I think especially as, say, for example, as males, a lot of a lot of guys tend not to really be willing to be vulnerable to, maybe, and women as well, but as a male speaking, may not be willing to really reconnect with anything that's going to bring up emotions or wanting to connect with things that really hurt. Instead of, it's kind of easier for us to kind of say build a shell to kind of protect ourselves, to not have to go back into those levels of vulnerability. But I'm glad that you pointed out to the fact that in wanting to do this type of work, it's kind of like you're approaching it from an observation standpoint. It's not that you're going to have to you know go dig up all that dirt and then have to deal with it. Like, no, it's more that you're doing it from an observatory perspective. That past version of you is not the person that you are today. And I think that's what you're pretty much alluding to. So, because I feel like a lot of people shy away from doing shadow work and inner child healing as a result of that. They're feeling like they have to take up all this baggage that they kind of cast it out to the side, and they don't want to deal with it anymore, not realizing that that's a whole different you from how many years ago. It's not the same you anymore. So I think that's a very profound thought with respect to the process based on how you've described it. And I guess how based on, I guess, the scenarios that you experienced, could you give maybe an example as to how, let's say, and I know it might be different for everybody, but just so people could get a better idea, maybe like an example of something that happened during childhood and how that particular instance or event impacted that person, how it manifested on the back end in their latter years of adulthood, for example. Do you have maybe an example that you could share off the top?
Yeah, I have so many, Raj, but
Okay.
I just want to touch on this piece about the men. I've worked with male clients and they share the same thing. I don't want to go back and I don't want to, judge all this stuff up. And I say to them, it's not about going to that feeling place. It's not about feeling all the feelings. And yes, there's an aspect of that, of course, but it's about being the father that you've never had to that aspect of yourself. It's about being the pastor that you never had to that aspect of yourself, or the coach, or the good friend. Whatever it is looking upon this aspect of yourself as a higher being, more evolved, more conscious, more loving, more kind, smarter, wiser, stronger, all the things. So it's if you're a man going through the healing process and you're thinking, I don't really want to do the feeling work, the approach can be the father that you've never had, be the uncle that you've never had, be the man that you did not have, or this aspect of you that didn't have. So that changes it a little bit because it offers the masculine an opportunity to hold the strength of and protection of the divine masculine for that younger aspect of them. So I just wanted to touch on that because that was a great point on the men. And for me personally speaking, how this shows up in our lives is, for me, again, complex trauma. I had both of my parents were alcoholics. I did not have adults around me who were emotionally mature and available for me to help support me and guide me and love me and hold space with me. So I grew up with a lot of abandonment, a lot of feelings of internalizing the dysfunction to mean I had low self worth and I was not worthy. So as a result, in my adulthood, these aspects of me, because I didn't connect with them, I didn't talk to them, I just kept kept it moving. I just kept living my life. Uh, but what was happening on the back end, subconsciously, is these aspects of me were choosing partners that would recreate the dysfunction, that would recreate the abandonment, right? So I had a very high tolerance of unacceptable behavior because these aspects of me were still wounded within me. And I had not yet moved into a place of offering them the detached. I love what you said about being the observer, the detached perspective, and loving them to bring them back to a safe place so their persona no longer hijacked me with their wounding. And I did not choose from their perspective. But it took me a really long time to finally get that. Years on years of choosing men who were physically abusive to me, that were alcoholics, emotionally abusive to me. Um, so it took a long time for me to begin to realize energy attracts energy. And that wounded energy within me was attracting wounded energy outside of me. So it was recreating the dysfunction that it knew until I, through the detached perspective, began to heal it.
Wow, that's it's a lot of heavy stuff, and I definitely extend so much love to you for being vulnerable and being willing to share from that perspective, because I know for a lot of women, that's something that is really damaging to have to go through from a traumatic level, and I commend you for standing up for yourself, for being so brave and bold, to be able to be at this point at stage of your life where you can, from your own experiences, be able to teach and to help others heal themselves. That is very profound. Not a lot of people are able to really overcome the challenges and traumas they've been through to move to a point to feel comfortable enough to talk about it and also help someone else through the trauma that they're going through. So, I sincerely thank you for holding space for yourself in that way and for coming out as this beautiful, bright, shining, being that's here willing to share and help others in this capacity. That's really beautiful.
Of
Um,
course, Ron. I'm a big believer that a person gets to get sick and tired of their own selves, their own behaviors, their own thoughts, their own depression, their own anxiety, their own self-sabotaging behaviors. I think we all get the opportunity to get to that point. And when we get to that point, we get to choose. We
yeah.
get to choose. And this is where we get to no longer blame and shame the circumstances of our lives from the past, our childhood or current circumstances. And we get quiet and do that about face. It's not an easy about face, but if we desire to have the life of our dreams, the happiness, the freedom, the abundance, prosperity, the love, then we all get to this place where we get to choose. Okay, I'm sick and tired of all of the things, right? The abuse, the poverty, the abandonment, the emotionally unavailable men or women in my life. It's the flag on the field that it's time to practice a pause, do the about face, and take responsibility for what has been done in the past to our hearts, to our souls. And for me, that is the game changer. That is the thing that changed it all for me, is that about face.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, from what you said, I mean, a lot of thoughts came to me, but I think as you were just saying, a big part of this journey and a big takeaway for sure that I want listeners to have is that we, as individuals, we really have to take ownership of a lot of what we're experiencing in our lives. Of course, I'm not perfect. I've definitely been through my own circumstances, and there were a lot of times throughout my journey where I would cast the blame outside of myself, whether it was, oh, maybe I used to say God did this, or, so and so family member or relationship or whatever, but it was never anything outside of ourselves or myself. It was all the things that I was experiencing in the external world was stemming from what I had going on in the internal world. And as you've highlighted, when don't take the time to take ownership, and to do that about face, guess what? The same situation is gonna keep happening, and it's crazy, to think that that's how it works, but that is in reality how it works when we do actually take the time to observe the different challenges we keep facing on repeat and not realizing. And to me, in some respects, a lot of it is just based on a lack of knowledge, a lack of exposure to certain information about ourselves as beings on this planet. And I that's why I'm happy to do this interview to spread these ideas and beliefs that we are the creators of our own realities, and the answers, as you're describing, they lie within us. As the guy who maybe didn't have the father, you have to fill that gap within you. No one else can do it but you. So you have to go within, connect with that space that might be hurting, that might, have those emotional damages, or energetic detachments, as you mentioned, and kind of fill those gaps. And we have to be brave enough to be willing to explore that within ourselves. So, I thank you a lot for sharing that. I know we don't have like a whole lot of time left, but I wanted for you to maybe tap into how, based on your practices, based on what you teach, like what is the method or what is the process, that you, I say, would encourage people to approach maybe dealing with their inner child, to promote healing and growth for themselves.
Yeah, great question, Raj. I think the first step is always to accept that there's something deeper going on. And when life isn't working out, the first step is to always accept something else is going on, and it's not about what's out here. And to do the about face, to begin getting quiet and creating stillness. A lot of people, our phones, we're so addicted to our phones and disassociating with, social media and TV and even music. Sometimes I'm driving and people have their music, cranked up. It's like they're drowning out their own thoughts and their own feelings. So to give yourself the spaciousness to be quiet, to create intentional presence for yourself. If it's hard for you to do that, just start with 5 minutes. Start with 5 minutes, a small meditation, or just sitting quietly breathing for 5 minutes, and ask yourself, how's your heart? That's all. Just ask yourself, how is your heart right now? And, a lot of times it is challenging to begin this practice because of the not making the time or judging what is happening or trying to avoid those places of the past. So I always use the analogy of, imagine you're at a park having a coffee when you're going to do this process. Just imagine you're out someplace in public, and imagine a small child comes running up to you with a bloody knee. They just fell off the swing and they come running up to you. And in that moment, you're going to innately create space for this child. You're going to ask them, oh my gosh, what happened? You're going to talk to them softly. You're going to look for help for them. You're going to take care of their knee, and you're going to listen to them. This is the same exact approach that we want to have with our own beautiful heart. Just make the space and just listen for what's in there without judging it, right? What did you fell off the swing? Why did you do that? Why or no, I don't have time for you. I don't have time for your, your skin knee. We want to approach it with love, these aspects of us with love. So if life is not working, if you find that life is not working for you, the invitation would be to refrain from looking out there, practice the pause, and go within with that beautiful, empathetic, compassionate approach that I just described, and explore. Just be the observer. These younger aspects of us can feel when we are avoiding them, and they can feel when we're afraid of them. So we want to hold that space of the father. We want to hold that space of the safe mother. Hold the space of the safe person that they can begin to trust and feel will be there for them. And then I always tell everybody, let whatever you are feeling and experiencing be. Some people will get to that place and they start crying and, oh, I'm sorry, I'm crying. I said, no, cry. Those tears are sacred waters. Cry. Even if you don't know why you are crying, whatever your body, heart innately wants to do, give it full permission to move through that authentic process, holding grace for yourself and love for yourself, knowing that it's coming from this younger aspect of you that's been repressed and suppressed, locked up for years. So just giving it love and our space and our time to say, I'm here for you now. Not needing to figure it out, not needing to be the hero, but just hold loving presence and see where it takes you.
Man, I feel like I'm already healed. I mean, man, listening to you describe that whole process, man, I feel like I'm already healed, man. Wow, I can definitely see why your clients love you, man. That you definitely embody this like I don't know, very peaceful, very serene essence that it's very heartwarming. So, that's beautiful, man. That's very beautiful. I know we're a bit short on time and we I had a bit of technical difficulties at the start, but I can tell that this is definitely something that we're gonna be doing a part two to carry on. But before we kind of get to wrapping things up, I wanted you to share, how can folks get in touch with you, or where can they find your information, etc. So that, after hearing this, I know they're probably going to be reaching out. So
Thank you, Raj.
please share how people can reach
Yeah. Yeah. So my website is Veronica Paris, Paris, like the
you.
city, veronicaparis.com. I'm on social media, and I just released my first book, Transcend Your Trauma.
Yep, yep.
And that's me. That's my little girl that I brought home. And this book is available on Amazon, audiobook, hard copy, um, and Kindle is all there on Amazon. And of course, Instagram and Facebook, Veronica Paris. You can find me on those platforms as well.
Awesome, awesome. I'll definitely post that information in the description so you guys can easily find that. But this has been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful interview. Like I said, we'll definitely be doing a part two so you guys can get more insight into this process of inner child healing. I think going into 2025, this is going to be something that's very instrumental with creating shifts for people. And for myself, for me, when I came across inner child work, I was like blown away because I didn't realize I wasn't I didn't connect the dots to have realized that wow, all that I've been experienced came from things that I didn't heal from as a child. It was so profound for me, you know. And when I did realize that, so many things began to shift within my life, within my mentality towards life, and it's crazy how impactful it can be on your life. So I highly encourage you guys to check out her work and to, visit her website, get, book a consultation just to even see what this whole process entails for yourself, because I can assure you that it will have tremendous, tremendous, tremendous impact on your, not just your spiritual journey, but just your life in general. You'll be able to hop out of those loopholes that you've been trapped in for so many years that have been blocking you from receiving the blessings that you maybe want, or finding that partner, or finding that successful opportunity. You keep self-sabotaging because of not dealing with the things from the past. And it's so 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 important to address these things sooner rather than later, you know what I mean? So again, Veronica, hi. I'm so very thankful to you. I express sincere love and gratitude for having you. Thank you for taking the time to hop on with us on Conscious Vibes. We look forward to interviewing you, continuing the conversation in our next interview, and go as deep as we can with exploring what is there available for us, you know, without having to spend thousands of dollars, trying to figure these things out, but all it takes is just being bold enough to go within, so again, I thank you so very much, and we look forward to hearing from you and speaking with you again on the next episode.
It's my honor, Raj. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.